Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into, well, a really compelling blend of historical moments, stories that tie Britain and China together in ways you might never expect. We've gathered quite a stack of sources here, articles, documentary transcripts, and they promise to unveil some truly moving and sometimes incredibly difficult truths about this shared history.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here, I think, is how these stories that seem quite separate, they actually weave together this narrative of heroism, sacrifice, and, well, ultimately a profound injustice too, one that still echoes today.
Right.
So our mission really is to help you extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from all this material, sort of a shortcut to being well-informed on this quite intricate past.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a name many of you will recognize, probably immortalized in that 1981 film, Chariots of Fire. Eric Liddell.
Ah, yes, the Flying Scotsman.
Exactly. His Olympic glory at the 1924 Paris Olympics is, well, it's legendary. He famously won the 400 meters Olympic and world record time.
And from the outside lane, too, which was tough.
Right. And he also got a bronze in the 200 meters. But what often stands out most is that decision, isn't it? To withdraw from the 100 meters because the heats were on a Sunday.
His devout Christian beliefs, absolutely central to his story. But, what's far less known, yet maybe equally impactful, is Liddell's life after that. His legacy in China.
Okay.
He was actually born there, Tianjin, North China, January 1902. His parents were missionaries with the London Mission Society.
So he had roots there already.
Deep roots. And after the Olympics, he could have had this glittering sporting career in the UK. He turned it down.
Really?
Yeah, chose to return to China, follow his parents' path, that missionary vocation. He became a teacher at an Anglo-Chinese college in Tianjin.
And uses sports background, I assume?
Absolutely. Leveraged it completely. Trained boys in all sorts of sports. Football, basketball, softball, baseball, ping pong, tennis, volleyball. Set up teams for all of them.
Wow, quite the coach.
He really was, and he didn't stop there. He helped build the Minuan Stadium in Tianjin. It was modeled on Stamford Bridge in London.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it became one of Asia's leading multidisciplinary sports venues. Then, fast forward to 1936, China sends its first Olympic team to Berlin.
And Liddell.
He's appointed their chief coach.
That's incredible. But his story in China goes deeper, doesn't it? Especially during the war years.
Oh, significantly deeper.
Well,
During the Japanese invasion, things got very dangerous. The British government actually advised him to leave China in 1941.
but he didn't.
He refused. Instead, he joined his brother, who was a doctor out in a village in Hebei province. They were offering medical treatment to locals suffering terrible hardships.
So real frontline humanitarian work.
Absolutely. And even later, when he was captured and interned at the Wexian prisoner camp, he didn't just survive, he became a leader. Helped the elderly, the sick, even taught science to the children in the camp. Just kept serving others.
That's dedication. It's almost unbelievable.
It really is. And sadly, tragically, he died there. February 21st, 1945. Just 5 months before the camp was liberated. Brain tumor, but also overwork, malnourishment. It all took its toll.
So his Olympic fame was just the kind of the tip of the iceberg then. How did that life in China, that selflessness during the war, really shape his legacy beyond just being an athlete? How's he remembered now?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting, as you say. His legend truly surpasses his sport. In China, he's remembered as much for his humanitarianism, his teaching, his war heroism, as he is for running.
Right.
His burial site was actually forgotten for a while, but it was rediscovered in 1989. Before that, in 88, they put up a granite marker above his grave. It's got a short biography, English and Chinese, and that quote from Isaiah.
They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary.
That's the one. Powerful stuff. And then a statue was added in 2015. Plus, back in the UK, you've got the Eric Liddell Community Care Charity in Edinburgh. There's a museum in Weifang dedicated to him, even a footpath named after him in Edinburgh. So he's not just an Olympic hero. He's become this symbol of compassion, of sacrifice that resonates really deeply in both cultures.
That's fascinating. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, Liddell becomes this powerful symbol, doesn't he, of Anglo-Chinese connection, shared values, maybe a genuine bridge between cultures.
Exactly. A single life impacting nations. It shows how individual character, that commitment to your beliefs, can resonate far beyond where you started, forging bonds even across huge cultural divides.
Okay, so building on that theme, that idea of shared humanity, let's turn to another story. This one's more about a collective act of connection, of rescue, again, forged in the heat of war.
Right.
We're talking about the focus of that documentary, The Sinking of the Lisbon Maru, which just premiered in the UK. So the Lisbon Maru, it was a Japanese armed troop carrier, October 1942, and it was carrying 1,800 British and Commonwealth prisoners of war. They got hit by a torpedo from an American submarine. Tragically, they mistook it for a Japanese troop ship.
And the events that followed. Just horrific. As the ship started sinking, the Japanese troops actually locked the prisoners below deck.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Many managed to break out eventually, but then, as they jumped into the sea trying to survive, the Japanese soldiers started shooting at them.
Shooting at men in the water.
Yes. Over 800 prisoners died. Just absolute chaos, brutality.
Yeah.
A really dark moment.
But amid that horror, something incredible happened. This pivotal act of heroism.
Yeah.
Tell us about the fishermen.
Right. This is the core of that documentary story. A group, a flotilla really, of poor Chinese fishermen from a nearby island. They saw what was happening.
And they went out amid the shooting.
They risked their lives, went out in their small boats, pulled nearly 400 survivors from the water, and took them back to their island.
Wow.
An incredible act of bravery and humanity.
That's astonishing. And the documentary's reception reflects that.
Hugely emotional, apparently. Yeah. There was an organ recital, a hymn dedicated specifically to the Lisbon Maru and those fishermen. It clearly struck a deep chord. And what comes across strongly, from the director, Feng Li, and people who attended the premiere, is this idea that, well, in their words, despite the politics, despite all the aggravation between nations sometimes.
People are people.
Exactly. People are friendly. And there are these human stories of where we've come together and where there is humanity. They really emphasized, during the wartime, we were allies.
So this raises an important question then, doesn't it? What does it mean when, even in the middle of war's chaos, these acts of just profound human connection can cut through the conflict?
It's a powerful question. It suggests, I think, that while governments and nations might be at war, that fundamental human impulse to help, to show compassion, it can still surface.
Even against orders or extreme danger.
Right. It's like our shared humanity can sometimes be stronger than the ideologies driving the conflict. A reminder, maybe, that even in the darkest times, there are these glimmers of light, acts driven by individual courage that sort of defy the logic of war.
Bridges, like you said with Liddell, even when the official bridges are burning.
Precisely. They become crucial reference points later on.
Okay, so we've had Liddell's individual bridge building, the Lisbon Maru's collective rescue, acts of connection. But now we have to shift gears quite dramatically, unfortunately.
Yes.
Because our next story reveals a far more calculated and painful chapter, a time when that wartime camaraderie was, well, tragically forgotten. Almost deliberately erased.
We're moving into the post-war period now.
Yeah, let's unpack this. This deep dive unearths what some sources call a hidden betrayal, focused on Chinese merchant seamen after World War II. Now, first, their role during the war was crucial, wasn't it?
Absolutely vital. The sources state that more than 1 in 7, think about that, more than 1 in 7 of the merchant seamen crewing those incredibly dangerous North Atlantic convoys were Chinese.
Wow, I had no idea it was that high.
It's a staggering number. They were essential in supplying Britain with food, materials, getting convoys through to Russia, India, Australia, facing the same dangers as everyone else. U-boats, attacks.
And the British government recognized this at the time.
Initially, yes. They actively recruited them, praised their courage. There was even a propaganda film made in 1944 to promote their role, to show solidarity.
Okay, so they were heroes during the war, but then what happened? What's this secret betrayal?
Well, the sources show that as soon as the war ended, literally weeks and months after, a decision was made. At a secret Home Office meeting, the plan was hatched: round them up and forcibly repatriate them.
Round them up, just like that. But these men had served. Many, presumably, had lives here.
Many did. Wives, children in some cases. But the methods used were, frankly, brutal. Men were just picked up off the street, from chip shops, laundries, mahjong games.
You're kidding.
No. Put into vans, driven straight to the docks, onto boats on the Mersey, and shipped out, often with no warning, no chance to say goodbye. It's been called a 70-year shame.
And the government acknowledges this now, but no apology.
They've acknowledged the records, yes. Admitted things happened. But a formal, unequivocal apology, that hasn't happened yet.
Okay, so what were the justifications given at the time? There must have been some official reason put forward.
Oh, there were justifications offered, but the sources really challenged them. Legally, for instance, in October 1945, the records show there were only grounds to deport 18 men. Just 18.
So how did they deport Thousands.
Officials, and this is documented, they hatched a plan, quote unquote, to basically change the rules. They started manipulating landing conditions, playing games with theoretical sailing dates for ships that didn't exist, just to create technical grounds for deportation.
Yeah.
To trip them up, as one source puts it.
That sounds incredibly cynical. What about other reasons, like the post-war situation?
Well, one big one cited was the housing crisis. Liverpool, where many sailors were based, was devastated by the Blitz. 4,000 killed, 10,000 homes destroyed, 70,000 homeless. A genuine crisis.
Okay.
So the argument was they needed the housing occupied by Chinese sailors for returning British servicemen and locals.
But hang on, how many Chinese sailors were we talking about? Would their housing really make that much difference in a crisis affecting 70,000 people?
Exactly the point the sources raise. The actual number, the small percentage of housing they occupied, likely wouldn't have significantly eased such a massive citywide shortage. It feels more like a convenient excuse.
Right. Any other justifications? Jobs, maybe?
That was another one, the idea of freeing up jobs for returning Brits. But again, the sources clarify. These Chinese sailors mainly worked for one specific shipping line, the Blue Funnel Line.
Okay.
And they crewed ships specifically trading with China and Asia. They were not taking any jobs in the English or British industry, as one account states directly. So that argument also seems pretty weak.
So if the legal grounds were flimsy and the housing and jobs arguments don't really hold up under scrutiny, what were the underlying motivations, according to these sources?
Well, the picture that emerges is pretty ugly. It appears to have been largely a racist decision. Officials at the time used terms like undesirables, criminal class to describe the men, even referred to their British wives dismissively as being from the prostitute class.
That's appalling language.
It is. And alongside the prejudice, there seems to have been strong economic pressure from the shipping companies. They wanted to stop paying the higher wartime rates and go back to paying much lower Far Eastern rates of pay.
So getting the sailors out of Britain forced them to sign on back in China or Singapore.
Precisely. Where they could be paid less. It was described as a pincer movement. Deny them work rights here, force them back to where the pay was lower. A combination of prejudice and profit motive.
And the state apparatus was used to enforce this. You mentioned roundups.
Yes, Britain's political police force, the special branch, was involved, conducting intensive search operations, raiding boarding houses. It was systematic.
The human cost must have been immense. What happened to the men and, crucially, the families left behind?
Profoundly devastating. The men, many couldn't write English well, if at all. They just vanished. No way to contact their wives, their children. The wives were often left completely destitute, feeling utterly abandoned. Imagine the confusion, the grief, the bitterness, as sources describe it.
And the children.
Thousands of British children lost their fathers overnight. Many ended up in orphanages, sometimes separated from their siblings. They grew up never knowing their dad, often facing prejudice themselves for being mixed race.
Can you give an example? The sources must have personal stories.
They do, and they're heartbreaking. There's Brian Flower, whose father, Zaifar Chow, just disappeared. Brian ended up in an orphanage. Or Esther Beto, her husband Chow Wang, was repatriated. Her baby son, Havan, died shortly after, buried in a pauper's grave. Her baby daughter was given up for adoption. Esther herself, she died young, only 30. Anorexia, mental health issues. She never knew her husband was forcibly taken away. She likely thought he'd just left her.
Oh, that's just gut-wrenching. The layers of tragedy.
It is, and this betrayal echoes across generations. It denied people their heritage, their connection to their Chinese roots, their full identity. It leads to those persistent questions even today for the descendants. Where are you really from? You're obviously not fully British.
And this fight for recognition, for an apology, it's still happening now.
Very much so. As we said, the Home Office reviewed the files recently. They admitted the policy was racially motivated, expressed regret for the treatment of some merchant Navy personnel.
Some. That wording feels cautious.
It does. We're talking over 8,000 Chinese merchant seamen repatriated, many forcibly, hundreds married to British women, yet still no formal government apology. Labor lawmakers are pushing for it, acknowledging their own party was in power for part of this period, too.
So why is an apology still so elusive, do you think? What's the connection to today?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? Is it fear of precedent? Cost, or just a deep reluctance to fully own up to this chapter? And you have to ask, how do these unaddressed historical wrongs feed into present-day issues, like that spike in anti-Asian racism, the racism on steroids, as some called it, during the COVID pandemic? Does failing to confront the past enable prejudice in the present?
That's a powerful point. And the memorial in Liverpool, does it tell the full story?
There is a memorial approved back in 2006, but the wording is quite sanitized. It says the men were required to leave.
Required to leave, not quite rounded up and deported.
Exactly. The community, the descendants, they want a new plaque, one that's honest, uses words like deportation, acknowledges they were rounded up. Because when people say, oh, just move on, the families respond, it's about time people stood up and put it right.
It's not just about history then, it's about identity for them now.
Absolutely. As one descendant said, they want to know who my father is because they're a missing part of me.
Yeah.
It's about restoring that connection, acknowledging a truth that was deliberately hidden for decades.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've covered a huge amount of ground today, haven't we?
We really have.
From Eric Liddell's incredible individual journey spanning continents, the unexpected heroism of the Lisbon Maru fishermen, right through to this deeply painful story of the merchant seaman, a systemic betrayal with such devastating personal costs.
And if we try to connect it all, I think understanding these different narratives, the good, the bad, the complex, it's just crucial, not just for getting history right, but for informing how we interact now in the present and future.
Right.
Recognizing both our shared capacity for connection, for humanity, but also the insidious nature of prejudice, how it led to such profound state-sanctioned injustice. It reminds us that history isn't abstract. It's about real people, and its consequences linger.
So a final thought for you to consider. Learning about these intertwined histories, these moments of connection and then betrayal, what does it make you think about the stories we choose to remember as societies? And maybe more importantly, the ones we've allowed or even helped to be forgotten.
And perhaps, how might bringing these truths back into the light influence our understanding of national identity today? And what about our collective commitment, our responsibility maybe to seek accountability and justice, even decades later, for those whose lives were so deeply damaged?